All right. Sorry. It's funny how I use this laptop for a bunch of things, work and 99% of the time I start up at fire interrupt, and then when you're actually trying to get it fired up in a quick manner, 15 pop-ups wants to update 5 different things, and it's like, who's spying on me? You don't want to know. That's exactly it. Sorry, I'm trying to find the specific. Alright, so we are talking about tough text, but I want to clarify that a little bit. So last week we looked at Judges 19, which is the toughest text. It's awful, right? We can all agree on that. And we talk a lot about the context, the language that's used there, and all the different things that kind of help us access and things like that, and kind of answer the question, is there anything that can be learned from this? And hopefully we kind of came away from that realizing the complexity of Scripture, but also realizing even with those really tough texts, the ones that never show up in our lectionary, that it is telling us something about the nature of God, but also about the nature of the world that the people of God, live in. I want to do a quick follow-up on last week's text. But there's a bit of a plug as far as that over the course of the summer, the texts that we're going to look at, which are hopefully texts that you all don't have to be awful like that. In fact, they could be texts that you take a lot of value from, or if they're used a lot, or might be a favorite of yours. But there might be something that you want to look at. Because all we're looking for is stuff that we can do the work on and hear together, if that makes sense. So, that being said, only one person sent me text this week, and he sent me a long list. He's not here. Jim Russell sent me a long list of texts, which is fantastic. He sent me a bunch of good ones. But the text that we're going to look at today, we're going to swap Old Testament and New Testament. We're going to be in Luke chapter 14. So if you didn't grab a Bible, you're going to need a Bible today. And you can see that you're going to need a Bible for every one of the classes this summer. And what I wanted to do today was set up the projector. Because I wanted to show you how I work with Greek printers, but I'm missing my HDMI cable. So note to self, I need to buy new HDMI cables. So long story short, I think I'm going to figure it out for you all. But what I will do is try and talk about what we would do in a case like this. So we're actually going to be in Luke 14, and we're reading the cost of discipleship. 25 through 33. Again, this is submitted by Jim Russell, who's not this morning. No shame. You are dressed in a gym shirt. In fact, even if you walked in for a second, I was relieved. I thought you I was so overjoyed to see you both. There was no disappointment. Okay. Everybody find it, Luke 14. June 30th. This is going to be at 9:30. So for the rest of the summer until the beginning of August, we're going to do Adult Ed at 9:30 as an experiment. so that we have a hour before worship, so we have time to do coffee and cookies. Sound good? Okay. And also, I'm going to do a write-up this week, talk about the worship survey. Council's meeting this week, so we'll talk about it then. It came up, spoiler, it came up pretty much in text, which is 50-50 split. 50-50 split as to whether or not to change the service. So what that means is that it's not going to happen right away. Whatever we end up doing, it's not going to happen right away because council needs to have a conversation. Likely, we're going to need to have a congregational conversation around this. Because what we really want to avoid is dividing people over this issue. So it is being worked on. We're wrapping up the house stuff right now. So council has a lot of time to keep doing that. It's on our radar. We're every hour myself, Jim Russell, I hate the thing here. We're covering your text. Okay, the cost of discipleship. Luke 14, and I'm going to read 25 and 33. Now, large crowds were traveling with him, and he turned and said to them, whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not first sit down and estimate the cost to see whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, "This fellow began to build and was not able to finish." Or what king going out to fight war against another king will not sit down first to consider whether he is able with 10,000 to oppose the one who comes against him with 20,000? If he cannot, then, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for the terms of peace. So, therefore, none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all your possessions. Thanks, Jim, for that submission. Yeah. No, this is actually fantastic. This is a great, great, great passage, and this is ideal for this kind of conversation, in my mind, because this, by the way, from a preaching perspective, because this does help on the lecture, is one of those texts where, for me at least, I want to speak right now. For me, this is one of the few texts when I find myself having to avoid what I preached before. Because every time I get to this text, I'm like, the heck am I supposed to say about this? What am I supposed to say about this? I can't remember what I preached about last time. I'm not worried about preaching the same sermon over and over again, which I think is a good thing, especially from a preaching perspective. So I realized I didn't have my handy-dandy markers. So let's talk about this. And of course, this subtitle, the cost of discipleship, does not exist in the text. Right? This isn't in the transcript at all. This is a subtitle that we get editorially put in after the fact. So there is already some interpretation that's happened in here. What does this remind you of, the Lutherans? Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who wrote a book called The Cost of Discipleship, which is a fantastic book if you haven't read it yet. We did a Bible study on the cost of discipleship 2 summers ago. Or was it 4 summers ago? COVID time, I don't know. I don't remember anything. So, first of all, just reading through this, what do you think? What popped up for it? No wrong answers here.
First thing that's always struck me, and still does, is
Guilt.
I would say, I'm probably about 95, I'm a good 95% Christian.
That's pretty optimistic, Paul.
No, it's profound.
Yeah.
The guilt that comes with that. perspective that we have created in this time of history that we do now, a very soft culture, a very easy culture. If you have money, if you play the money game correctly in North America, there is an ease that is beyond belief for most people, most of history. And this then becomes all layering. And maybe it points to the trap of austerity.
I had a very appropriate experience of this. Ellen and I, a couple of weeks ago, met with a financial advisor. Has anybody had an experience? This is the first for me. I've never had enough finances to advise it before. So we went, and it was actually a good experience. It was nice to meet me, and it was more that Ellen, as you were aware, makes significantly more money than I do. She works for herself, and it's not about how little I make, it's that she's an engineer, a doctor, engineer, so she makes a commensurate amount of money for the education that she has, right? And she's smart and very accomplished, so she gets paid well. So a lot of it is that Ellen has stock and excess income because of how much she enjoys herself, and she has anxiety. So funny to me. She has anxiety around the fact that she has all this extra money that she's not doing anything with, which has never been my problem. I've never had that problem. It's usually been the other problem, which is I don't have enough money, and I need to get enough money to pay the bills before X date. And there's a repeat. Although that's maybe a decade gone now. Not so much like anymore. Maybe because I married a man. I mean, a little scared. But we sat down with a financial advisor. One of the things that she said to us right away is, "You have saved very well." She was speaking to Ellen. And Ellen was like, she was very confused. And she's like, "How can we?" And she's like, "Yes, absolutely." And I'm like, "Is it?" But the financial advisor reminded her of something, which is you realize that the average American has less than $3,000 in savings. Right? Yeah. And I bring that up because this is the truth too. So when we talk about the last verse 33, right? So therefore none of you can become my disciples and not give up all your possessions. That hits harder for me, for us, than it does for somebody living paycheck to paycheck, right? Yeah. It's like, what's 0 divided by 0? What's the problem here? I give up, yeah, I'll give up on nothing, sure thing.
Could it also to you're unwilling to change?
Yeah.
Because possessions, give up possessions, that's the change. You can't change.
Yeah.
Give up where you are, where you want to be, then you can't really get home with it.
Have you any of you experienced that? When's the last time you moved? I may be the wrong crowd for this question.
I moved 63 years.
Yes, Pat, you and Abner built that house and lived in that house. This is part of, not your house specifically, but that concept is part of the sermon today, by the way. Our next door neighbors, Jim and Marcy, who go to St. Clair Catholic Church in Ohio, they have been best friends for these 4 years, recently moved to Mary's Woods, which actually has been a big piece of grief for us. They've been such good friends to us, and it's been a big piece of grief for them. In the neighborhood, but they've been in that house for 41 years, right? So in this house that was theirs, and that was hard. It's hard saying goodbye to your neighborhood, but then having to go through the process of going through each and everything that you have and doing triage on it. Like, I need to fit this into a house that's a third the size of the house that we live in. What has value to us, right? So change and transformation, right? To top it off, so they sold their house probably a year or two late. If they would have sold it a year ago, they would have sold the next day and they would have made 20% more. As it was, that house was sign up with Mary's Woods, they tell you, here's the date that you're going to move in, here's the deposit of X $100,000 is due on that thing. So there was a lot of anxiety around, are we going to get this house sold in time to put a deposit and get moved in? It's by the skin of their teeth at the end of it. Yeah. So that, that's grief too. But yeah, I mean, that's a really, really profound, that's a really important insight as well too, that one of the things that I think Jesus is bringing up is, are you willing, are you able, that following me is going to be transformative, are you equipped to that?
The word hate.
Yeah, yeah. And this is where we can do a word too. But, okay, hey, Susan, tell me about hate. I mean, you don't have to give me Merriam-Webster, but, what does hate mean to you?
It sounds very harsh.
Yeah.
Well, it's an incredible investment, so I think what's easier to be indifferent.
It's much easier to be lackadaisical or milquetoast about something than it is to.
Okay, question I would have is, going back to the original text, what was the word that was used?
Well, this is
Exactly, or is it something that we're saying?
the answer to the question. This is exactly what we're gonna take a look at here.
So hate is an intense dislike.
Yes. Hate, yeah, and emphasis on the intense. What I'm doing while we're talking is I pulled up an interlinear. Does everybody know what an interlinear is? Yeah, between lines. So basically, a Greek interlinear has the English text, and it has the Greek word that corresponds to the word that's translated. And then the ones that are helpful then have the Strong's Concordance number below it, so that I can then look at the concordance number. I don't have to take the interlinear word translation.
First, the linear I bought was German.
Oh.
And I didn't know German. So I had to learn Greek really fast.
But it's okay, and there's really a history to this as well too, is that the Germans by and large are responsible for a lot of biblical translation. Luther started that, which has affected how we translate things, especially Hebrew, the W and the B sounds in terms of how it's pronounced, and influenced by Germans not being able to say wood. So for example, the name that we translate as Eve is actually probably more appropriately pronounced as A-way, but because the Germans can't do W, it became E anyways. So yes, German translation is very important. The Biblica Hebraica Superdensia, the German translation of the Hebrew Bible. Okay, so here's what I did. I pulled up the Greek interlinear, and I was going to project this so you don't have the right tables. And what it brings up for me is Luke 24, and I looked at the verse, which is 26. If any man comes to me, and this is in the King James, and hates not his father and mother, right, and children. And I looked for the word that's translated as hate, and it's the Greek verb misei, M-I-S-E-I, is the transliteration. Does everybody know what transliteration means? So what we do with like things that are in a different language, especially people that don't read such language, especially for languages that don't have Roman characters, for example, A, C, D, and G. Greek has elevated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Hebrew has all of it, dollars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We transliterate, which means that we essentially take the pronunciation of the word and write it in English. Okay. So misei in Greek is spelled mu, iota, kappa, epsilon, iota. Greek is roughly Greek. So I found the word misei. Gives me the Strong's Concordance number, which is G3404. Remember, anybody ever find on Google search history, they're going to be really confused why people looking at part numbers. this is the problem. When I look up Strong's Concordance numbers, I either get a Strong's Concordance result or I get a part number, like a machine part or something like that. Anyways, so it's G3404, which is Strong's Concordance. I find it misei. gives me a bunch of different information, including pronunciation, its root word, psychology, its primary etymology, which is from hate, mesos, which is the non-realizable form, which is hatred, as opposed to the verb hate. And then it gives me different inflections of the word, it tells me where it's used, and how often it's translated the way it's translated. So it shows up 30 or 42 times in the New Testament, and 41 times it's translated as hate. The other time it's translated as hateful. So there's a grammar issue somewhere. So this is one of those times where we look at a word like this, and we're like, okay, it means hate. And the problem with that is we might reach the end of that and say, what am I supposed to do with this now? But this is where it's not just context, but it's even how we think about the things that we think about matters. So when Susan was thinking about hate, what was the word you used? It seemed really intense. Intense, yeah. Is this an emotion or an action? Could be either one, and then her reaction. But by and large, as it's used colloquially, is it an emotion or an action? Emotion, yeah. I have to remember not to use the capital these markers. I know. Me too. Perfect example. That was a wonderful call. Thank you. Point for Paul. Yeah. Paul up here, you get a star. Just like school, right? So, by and large, use colloquially, yes, it's an emotion, right? How many have interactions with teenagers? They hate everything, right? I hate you, I hate this house, I hate school, I hate my dog, I hate my backpack, you know, and why is that? Why do teenagers hate everything? Do they hate everything? No. Well, why? Amen, sister. Yeah, they've got a lot of emotions, right? Their physiology, their brain chemistry is changing. They're going through adolescence, that amazing period of humanity that I still don't understand, and they don't know what to do with it at all.
They're testing everything.
They're taking.
And the vocabulary is really small.
But that's changing, right? That's changing rapidly. That's one of the terrifying times, I think, with teenagers is when they start to speak more complex, right? When you used to be able to shut down pretty quickly, and then all of a sudden they come home and they're using multi-syllabic words that they learned with them learns, you know? Yeah. Yeah, so you know, in our other context, this is an emotion. How do you think Jesus is using it here? There's no right answer. But how do you think Jesus is using it here?
It sounds like there's more distancing yourself from subjects who aren't using this action.
That could be. So more in the action. Yeah. So it's not so much about how you emotionally feel about your mom, dad, your sister, your brother. It's how you're behaving. And what is this all about? What is the context for all of this stuff? Whether it's, you know, are you willing to give up your money, you hate your brother and sister? What's this for the sake of?
What's your priority?
What's that?
Your priority.
Priorities. Yeah. And what are we prioritizing between here?
Well, God and everything else.
Yeah, which in this case is he's speaking specifically about discipleship. If you want to be my disciple, yeah. And it's so hard for me to spell. I have to write each letter at a time. My brain, you're jumping. I order a T. Good Lord. Spell check, please. Do you ever find yourself doing that? Like, where I'm writing a physical, I'm writing my dad my Father's Day card, and I'm waiting for spell check. I'm really where that spell. Oh, our brains are so messed up. So messed up. So we kind of like, not necessarily, but we've identified perhaps in this case, Jesus is not necessarily concerned with how you feel about things, he's more concerned with how you're behaving, with what you're doing, your action, okay? This kind of the question now is, what then is hate as an action? This is tough, okay? I want to be perfectly clear here. From a modern context, what does hate as an action look like? Negative, absolutely. Horrible. Critical. Fearful. Extreme. Unknown. Violent. Is hate violent?
Or just like the whole passage, there's no extreme, there's no black and white, it's just, and that is non-negotiable.
Okay. I don't want to go over this. I'm going to write this down. We'll come back to that. I'm trying to jump ahead. I'm not going to do that. Thank you. That's a good one.
I think there's a passage somewhere.
Yeah. The thing possesses.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
So that the hate is on the same level as the
Hmm.
Yeah, there's the cruelty involved. And the suspension of
I like that. Suspension of compassion. And I'm still not recharged yet.
And then it's confusing, because that's another part, Jesus tells us to love our neighbor and love our enemies.
Yeah. Yeah. You turn elsewhere in Mark, and you have the polar opposite of this. Love your neighbor as yourself. Who's your neighbor, right? And Jesus seems to be alluding that everybody's your neighbor, including your enemies.
Well, you choose to hate somebody too.
Do you? Sorry, I'm not questioning. Cheryl.
Saying that, you know,
That was my way of asking her to say more.
choice there of hating someone, like a rapist, you know. But then I had learned to forgive,
But you articulated something,
yeah.
which is very important. And you might not realize that you did that. Because what you just did is you drew a distinction between this and this. Okay, for example, in Mr. Rogers, I just reread the Tom Juno article again. I did it on a daily basis. Did anybody ever read that? Did anybody watch It's a Beautiful Day in the movie that was based on the two Tom Juno article? Yes. Okay. If you haven't, yeah. The problem is that it was on Esquire. You don't have an Esquire subscription, it's hard to find. But believe it or not, there's a Mr. Rogers online database where somebody, some gentle soul has compiled every news article and everything written about Mr. Rogers, which you can find free of charge. And the Esquire article is on there. Anyways, one of the things that there's this great, let me instead of expositing, let me tell you the story in the article. So there's one of this, in the article, Tom Juno is following the author of the article is following Mr. Rogers around. He's writing a profile piece on him, okay? And at one point, they're walking on the subway in Manhattan, and people are swarming him, right? It's Mr. Rogers, he's a celebrity. He doesn't say no to anybody. So kids are coming up, and adults, and people. And at one point, he encounters a boy who is afraid of Mr. Rogers. But his mom does. So his mom was saying that as a little boy is holding a huge plastic sword and waving around vigorously. The mom recognizes Mr. Rogers. She wants the boy to appreciate Mr. Rogers, but the boy's no idea who it is. So Mr. Rogers approaches the boy cautiously, doesn't want to snap the plastic sword. At some point, he goes up and he whispers in the boy's ear, and Tom Juno is watching the whole thing, and the boy nods, and Mr. Rogers walks away, and of course he asks him what he said to him, and Mr. Rogers says, you know, boys especially little boys, want to be seen to be strong on the outside. I just let them know that he's strong on the inside too. I go, oh, it hurts. But a lot of what Mr. Rogers talks about is what do we do with the things that we feel, right? And what you articulated is that exactly. What do we do with the things that we feel? Are there people, things, events in your experience that cause you to feel negative emotions? Absolutely. Go ahead.
I think it's sometimes we have a problem, or somebody has a problem, and they don't they say they hate that
Yeah,
person.
that's-
It's like putting a Band-Aid over the store, so you don't see the store, but it's.
Great insight too, which is they have a problem, they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
How many times do we hate something because we simply don't understand it, right? Or it's fearful to us. So what Cheryl articulated is there's a difference between what you feel and how you react to those feelings.
Just think with Mr. Robbins, it's the people who produce television with dislike intensely his attention to children, because when they were around him on set, he spent a great deal of time in their face.
Yeah.
With them, giving them tremendous attention, and the adults were looking at their lives and feeling and
Run production schedule here, Fred.
so I would say that he hated the production schedule.
Yes. Okay, we're going somewhere. Is it fire anything? Oh, there.
Yeah, we've seen.
Look at that. Oh, my clock. That clock's not working. I'm looking at that one. I'm like, I got 50 minutes. Time is going. I was relaxed. Okay, I better pay more attention. The batteries are dead at home. Thank you for making me aware of that. Okay. So let's go back to this idea. In fact, let's hate it for a little bit. We're gonna come back. So we talked about how, in this case, perhaps Jesus is talking about what you do. In this passage, one of the things that Jesus is asking you to do, or asking you to think about. So already in verse 33, give up your money. What else?
Well, I know you took it away from me. But,
No. I mean, yes, categorically, but in this case.
This whole passage to me is Jesus telling people, concentrate on me.
Yeah.
Get rid of all your side issues. If you're paying more attention to your family, you're not paying enough time to me.
Yeah. Yes. That's the way of looking at it. I would qualify it in one way. And it's not that Jesus ever asks us to pay attention to him. And again, this is my reading of it, so I'm even hesitant to project this, but in this case, what Jesus is specifically asking for is the noun that all this is modeling is this, which you could definitely interpret as paying attention to Jesus. But in this case, it's specifically if you want to be my disciple. Okay? And again, you could make a strong argument that's one and the same thing. Sometimes the semantics are important. And in this case, I think that this is important. So let's talk about this for a little bit. What's it to be a disciple? Sharing the gospel of Jesus.
And be sure the gifts that he's given you, or his talent,
Yes. Yes. Sharing your knowledge, gifts, talents, money, whatever it is. Sharing the gospel, sharing the gifts that Jesus has given you. Yeah, absolutely. Paula, you have your hand up.
Okay, this is probably an aside, but verse 27, whoever does not carry the cross and follow me, not be my disciple. Is that a literary metaphor? They say that kind of thing. What? What's the deal?
You're saying some important stuff. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be a disciple. Now, Linda, this is the reason why I wanted to focus this word, because you articulated essentially that discipleship is all following Jesus. But Jesus here essentially defines discipleship as following. Which again could be same things, but it's one of three different things in this text that he's asking you to do. So that means that it's not necessarily the sum total of discipleship, it's an aspect of it. Which again, can be semantics. We'll come back to that. carrying the cross, pick up the cross, and follow Jesus. But that's supposed to represent carrying the cross and follow Jesus.
What about this whole section where they ended out planning ahead
Yeah.
and having enough or otherwise getting up?
Oh,
This
And-
must be ever reason.
and this is great. Okay, so let's set those down for a little bit. How many of you have, at some point in your life, practiced either rhetoric or the work of making an argument, either in technical writing or otherwise? What's the general outline for a presentation?
And I have the topic then.
A topic sentence, thank you. So a topic or an introduction or thesis, followed by
Examples?
examples, right? The body of your argument. And so you tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them, you give them examples of what you're telling them, and then you tell them what you told them. Right? Okay. Believe it or not, Jesus does this a lot. It's not necessarily in a rigid format of introduction, body, conclusion that we're used to. But one of the things that Jesus does all the time is he'll introduce an idea, and then he gives supporting metaphors. Sometimes that comes out in parables. Sometimes it's just straight up metaphors. Like, for example, here, he's paired this metaphors that the guy's going to build a tower, he wants to make sure that he's got enough money to build the tower before he tries to build it. He loses me right away. I don't know why I don't need to build the tower. I had dreams when I was like 22. And I was getting my engineering degree, and I envisioned being a wealthy engineer someday, that I was going to build my own house. I was going to have a 4-story high tower with a turret, and I don't know. I read a lot of fantasy novels when I was a kid. Where was I going with that? Anyways, he loses me with the tower, but then other metaphors, like, preparing for battle, you realize you're under 2 to 1, you do the math, right? Make sure that you're prepared. How do these examples tie into or support or help us understand what he's talking about when it comes to discipleship and or giving up your money and or quote unquote hating mother, father, or sister? Jim.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of why do what I like. Why I do things that I do. And I sense this passage saying why you love me. So the what falls with these things he's saying. What I would like you to do. The why is sort of the being who we are. The what is sort of the doing. So we're doing and being what why. It helps me kind of walk that path and understand why.
Gotcha. So you're approaching that.
My center is the why.
Oh, I see. So you're not necessarily asking the why should I follow Jesus? You're saying that my why is Jesus. That's great. What do you think about that? It does give us a great way to kind of read this text in general. What does it mean for Jesus to be your why?
It's kind of narrow. I don't like doing dishes. Like, why do I do them? I want a family, a home, all the good things that I want in my life. Yeah, so the washing dishes is because of why. And how
Washing dishes is in support of your bigger picture.
bigger value.
Yeah. What does it mean to read a text like this? Yeah. It's essentially questioning. It's saying, what we already talked about, here's my priority. How does everything else filter in the light of that priority? Which kind of makes sense when we get to the mother, father, brother, sister concept. That if quote unquote Jesus is your why, then everything is essentially translated or interpreted in light of that. How does that sit?
You never put that in Jesus.
Yeah. What does that mean functionally?
You love the Lord, you love to understand.
Interesting. Because some would argue that actually what this is you have to always make sure that you love Jesus more than anything else. You ever heard that sermon on this text before? That you have to love Jesus the most? Has anybody had a sermon where they've done the sand trick with this one before? I've seen this sermon where the pastor takes a glass jar, and they have different sized rocks. Say the big rocks, and your medium sized rocks, and little rocks. And they say the big rock is Jesus, medium rocks are your family, and the small rocks are everything else. If you put the small rocks in first and then the medium rocks, you can't get the big rock. Right? But if you put the big rock in and then the medium rocks, they filter it, and the small rocks filter through the medium rocks. And
kind of line with that, and also Matthew and Mark have that, the way it's here.
yeah.
Sort of, it's just passage is sort of, it's either or, either me or your parents. And I like what Dan has, either or. It's me, it's my parents, my neighbors, it's the people over in our axis. It's expanding in separate circles of and, not either or. I find that easier.
Okay, you're articulating something here, which is important. I'm going to draw a picture that I think is going to be helpful. And by the way, I want to be clear here that we're not necessarily trying to find the right answer for this text at the end of the day. What we've been doing this entire time is the work, right? How many of you, in doing this work, have engaged your brains and thought differently about this text? You don't even need to have a profound awakening, but how many of you have thought about your money, your relationships? How many of you thought about what it means to carry the cross? How many of you thought about what it means to follow Jesus as a disciple? I'll tell you something here. I think that's Jesus' number one priority. More often than not, he's not necessarily trying to get people to do things. He's trying to get people to think about the things they do. Okay? That's the purpose of the parables. He says as much, right? In Luke, the disciples asked Jesus, "What's the purpose of the parables?" And I'm paraphrasing, he says, "To confuse you." It's essentially what it does. Because by and large, how many of you have at one point in your lives or today are teachers, have been teachers? Have you ever had an experience where you look up and thinking that they already know the subject you're going to teach them? Have you ever had to make people unlearn something in order to help them learn it? Yeah, all the time. All the time. Yeah, that's in fact one of the hard parts of teaching, especially in the modern era, is because so much information is available via the internet, and you can find anything you want. A lot of us in the modern era think that, well, we don't really need to learn anything when we find it on the internet. You know, it's quickly referenceable. It's all right there, yeah. And it's all, and it's all right, right? Define, yeah, it's the veracity of it is sure, right? A lot of them talking to them, further struggle with this as well too, which is convincing kids why they need to actually learn and internalize this stuff, not just rely on their calculator or their phone. We need to untrain them in order to train them. A lot of what Jesus is doing is untraining people. Because they live in a context and culture, they're sure of the world around them, the place that they serve in. And he's saying, well, no, let's rework this. Okay, so I totally understand about picture. And for me, this has always been helpful in thinking about this. So Jesus says, you do not hate mother, father, brother, sister, etc. If you don't pick up the cross and follow me, if you don't give up your goods, you can't be a disciple. It really feels like an either or, right? In other words, I have to choose between one or the other. And when you set either or, what you're essentially saying is there are two distinct things. And one of these things is Jesus, and one of these things is whatever. It's a variable X. It's your mother, brother, sister, it's money, it's your house, it's whatever you're supposed to give up. You're supposed to make the right choice, right? And that is ultimately where a lot of interpretations of this text lead, is that what Jesus is asking you to do is to make a choice. You either choose Jesus or you choose the wrong thing. There is no choice. But the assumption on which that's founded is that these are two distinct things. That Jesus is fundamentally separate from everything else. Okay? It's who Jesus is.
I think you're supposed to share what you have. Because what happens is this, which is your education or whatever it is, and you share that with others, and that sharing Jesus with others.
You just said something really important. You said everything you have is a gift. Is this a gift in Jesus? Yeah. And this, by the way, I'm sorry. This is one of my monumental frustrations in how we talk about wealth in America in the 21st century, is how much of it is about the secret to making money based off of how other people are making money. As if they're smarter, better, or they've discovered some secret to making money, right? We idolize billionaires and millions of the world. We buy their books as if how they made their $1 billion is going to be a roadmap for me to make $1 billion. When, if you look at the top 15 wealthy people in the world, they all started with 6 figures. And turning 6 figures into 7 figures is not magic. It's math. Right? If you stick $1 million in a 5%, savings account, that is going to grow exponentially faster than my $6,000 in savings at 5%. It's just the way that math works, right? And if you start with not even a fixed number, but you start with a parent or a family who has generational wealth beyond wildest dreams, there's no scenario in which you fail, right? It's just that. So the way in which we talk about money, I work for my money, right? I work hard for this. It's not denying that you work hard, right? But one of the things that Bonhoeffer labors, in fact, it's a concept of discipleship, it's more than ethics, is everything that you have is a gift from God. And it's not just this, not just money, it is your mother, father, brother, sister, is a gift from God. This is a gift from God. For life itself is a divine gift, right? And this is, by the way, both in gospel section and in ethics, one of the things that Bonhoeffer really struggles with is the concept of suicide. He calls it at one point self-murder, because in his framework, if life is a gift from God, then to kill yourself is a denial of God's gifts. And then he goes on to explore that. This is one of the things I love about Bonhoeffer, is Bonhoeffer will make a statement and then draw 4 examples critiquing his statement. This is why, by the way, this is why he's also a wonderful example of a scientist in a deep emotion, because he does the thing that scientists do, which is he makes a statement and then he tries to disprove it immediately. Which I just watched a scientist last night. And Terrence Howard was everywhere. He is not a scientist. He's the exact opposite of a scientist. He's in the news right now because he wrote a book that a bunch of celebrities are laughing at, which he makes a profound statement that 1 times 1 equals 2. And if you have to think about that for a second, it's complete money, and he doesn't understand mathematics. And I can't believe he's selling books based on this. This is proof positive why our world is going to end tomorrow. Everything's given from God, including money, including your family, including your very own body. This is, for me, the most important part of reading this text, is that one of the things that we do when we find ourselves at this moment of having to make a choice is we're operating on the false assumption that, look, Jesus is separate from those things. And this is what I think he's trying to get these people to think about. Is because I guarantee you the people that are sitting there listening to him, just like we who are reading this text, probably went, but I love my mother, my father, my brother. And I bet some people going, yeah, I hate my brother. No problem, right? I bet a lot of people were having the same conversation about money. Like, shoot, I got a lot of savings. I don't want to be involved in that. They're going, I got nothing. No problem. You know? But for every single one of those people, what did it do? It made them think about it. It made them think critically about what the barriers were that existed between them and this concept of discipleship, right? And he kind of puts that drop, I think I'll answer, but pick it across Paul. And one of the things he doesn't define here either is what is the cross? What does it mean to pick up the cross? Is he speaking literally? Well, is he saying this before his crucifixion? And we know that many of the apostles themselves are to maybe. But for us, crucifixion, thankfully, is not prevalent. And very few of us, I think, are going to run the risk of a political execution. So that's kind of out of the boat for us. So it doesn't mean for us to carry our hard cross. Well, wherever you end up with that, you're going to have to do the work of translation, interpretation, metaphor, right? What is your cross metaphorically? And there's no right answer at the end of that, right? In fact, I would argue that the way in which you think about that, the way in which you struggle with that, is part of this process, right? Is that thinking constantly about what's Jesus calling me to do when he says carry your cross? What is Jesus saying to me when he says that you aren't willing to give up possessions? What is Jesus saying to me if you don't hate mother, father, brother, sister? But again, the major false assumption which immediately leads down a bad path is that these things are separate. Go ahead.
He carried the cross, he suffered, his life was taken away, and at the end of the book, God speaks to him. Okay, I'm with you.
I love Job. Job is in my top 5. Job and Jonah, I like the books. Not so much Jude. I like Jude. Yeah. Job, we should look at Job. In fact, Job needs to be on this summer. How does this all change if we suddenly erase this and we understand that, in fact, they're all part of one thing? If everything's a gift from God, your sex, love, what does it mean if you don't hate mother, father, brother? What does it mean if you can't give up your possessions? There's no right answer here. Let me throw a couple examples to you. How many of you have ever given the wrong gift? Especially with kids, right? This is, by the way, talking about wealth. I love my brother and my sister-in-law and my niece. Her birthday is such a pain in the butt. Number one, because they usually got some of this elaborate party planned for her, so like we try to fit in to celebrate with her at some point, which is part of it, of course, I know. But then what the heck do I get the girl who literally got everything? And then you put her in this awkward situation, like, I already have it, right? Or not even something that I'm interested in, it's scrape the bottom of the barrel to try and find something, right?
That's why I started saving accounts.
Savings accounts.
Put money in, and done.
There's no amount of money that I can put into a savings account which is going to make any that for my brother. It's okay for her. But yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, talking about gift, right? Are there times when gifts actually become negatives?
Yeah.
Right? When the gift matters more than the relationship that's intended by. I think this is the insight here. I think this is what Jesus is trying to get people to think about. What is the thing that is the underlying kind of foundation for all of this? It's relationship. Okay? That is the through line for everything here, is relationship. Mother, father, brother, sister, it's relationship. Money, it's relationship. Okay? Have you ever had a relationship that became toxic because you dumped too much energy into it? You were doing 110%, and the other person was doing 15%. And perhaps the other person was doing routine because you were doing 110, right? Not what's wrong. And it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, it can be, friends, partners, whatever, right? Is that relationships in everything are about balance, moderation, but also about the co-nature of relationships.
Well, also, they need to realize that possessions are not the important things in life. It is the relationships. It is, like you said, where do you get something for somebody who has everything? Well, you can give them your time.
Yeah.
You can give them your friendship. You can give them an acronym and a spot. I mean, something that is coming from your heart.
Yeah.
Rather than your wallet.
Yeah. And it's what you're articulating is trying to find a gift that accentuates the relationship.
Well, example, my daughter might get me perfume for my birthday.
Yeah.
But when my grandson was 6 years old, he painted me some pictures. I still have those pictures on the wall. Pretty long gone, but I still have the pictures.
Yeah. And you appreciate each other in different ways. And one of the things about getting a drawing from a child or grandchild or a niece or nephew, if it's out, you can't, there's nothing you can buy or whatever substitute that. Because of the relationship, right? Because that painting, it's not how good the painting is, it reminds you of that person. Okay. We're gonna wrap up with this, which is, again, we're not necessarily trying to come out of this answers. The work, the thinking we do is the important part. And the thing that I would encourage us to, if there's, I don't hate it, I was gonna say there's one takeaway, but there's a lot of takeaways here. The thing I'm gonna throw in the mix here is that I think what Jesus is trying to get his disciples, or us, or the people there, to think about is how how you prioritize and how you can turn a relationship, such as my relationship with my wife or my father, how I can make it go bad if I don't prioritize it right. Which is to say, similarly, I'm an introvert. I need a little time. My wife's a little less an introvert, but she still needs a little time. And so a lot of what living together has for us is learning the dance of a relationship. Learning that just because she's grumpy doesn't mean I make her grumpy, but it still means I should make her calm. and vice versa. And again, hate is such a strong word, but I think what Jesus is saying again is about action. If you can't set that down some of the time, you will lose in the end anyhow. And that ultimately what he's asking people to do is interpret your relationship to your possessions, your relationship to your loved ones, through this understanding of the giftedness that is in God. Does that kind of compute? Right? And here's where it gives extra meaning to me. For those of us who have lost something, how many of them are losing? I mean, me, 100%. I don't regret it. Christopher says don't regret it. We just did it. And yet at the same time, one of the ways that I have come to peace with this years later, understanding that the time that I had with my mother was a gift. I wish I had more of that gift. Right? But in the end, I can't resent because of the quantity of that. In the same way that I can't resent my niece for not liking the gift I scraped off the bottom of the barrel. But I would hope that she still appreciates me as an uncle, which I know that she does. Right? And when we understand our relationships and our properties as being interpreted through this understanding of the giftedness of God, or being gifts from God, it ultimately makes everything else more healthy and happy in the long run. We have to do so much work to get there. I know. All right, I'll see you guys in worship. Next week, we're going to look at Job. Thanks, Jim, for giving us the next text. If you want to read ahead, don't. Job is one, but if you want to read ahead, you can skim through Job. Particularly, I would really encourage you to read the final chapter of Job. For me, that's the key to kind of in that text to a certain extent.